What's going on, troopers? Welcome to the Trooper Transmission. Today we got my man Spencer, aka Ranger CT 3079 here to talk all things fitness, a little bit of Star Wars and nerdom mixed in. So, man, thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Paul.
Absolutely. So, let's wind the clock back. And I remember the day we actually initially connected. I think you followed me, and I was like, "Hey, you should try these body weight workouts." But even maybe further back, what was the starting point of your fitness journey, or what was the kind of moment when you're like, okay, I want to make a change for you?
Yeah, so for me, it was, there's a couple of things that happened throughout the year. I was in a friend's wedding and I could see I'd been thinking about like trying to lose some weight for that wedding and never did. And that was over the summer. And then was getting fitted for that. And then actually just seeing myself in pictures, I was like, that's not the way that I want to be presenting myself. I think I could be better than that. And so that part of that was a driver. And then as we got towards the end of the summer, I was like, okay, I've got some space. Talked it over with the wife to start trying to feed fitness into the schedule. And same thing, I mean, kind of like you said, is one was scrolling through the various social feeds and just started to see and follow people that are positive influences and people that are trying to put a positive message out there. And a lot of that sparked saying, some of it I was looking at it mentally the wrong way. I was looking at trying to climb this Everest of getting myself into shape and losing all that weight without any of the support or any of the knowledge or the tools to get there. But then I was saying, okay, here I was kept picking up on different little cues. Like, this is okay. It is okay for you to be at this place. Everyone starts somewhere. You don't need to be, you know, 10 steps down this journey already to get started. In fact, that's not the point. You need to just start. And so that kind of started getting me going. And I just started hitting the gym. And then I was at that point of, you know, being in there and getting into the gym, at least getting some exercise in and starting to feel better with the movement. But then one of the things that was just missing of doing it alone was I was doing it alone, so I didn't have any community or there to like bounce off of. My family is supportive, everybody that I know is supportive, but it's looking for that community of people to kind of bounce ideas off of and be part of something.
Yeah. Something you said that kind of just gave me a chuckle inside is imagine hitting like a PR and then you come home to your toddler and you're like, you don't care. You literally want me to read you the same book for the 100th time.
Yeah,
So I totally get that because I was running into that a couple days ago with my kid and I was like, you literally just took a nap and you have no concept of that. Cool to be able to share your wins, obviously with your significant other, but also just other people
yeah,
that are on a journey as well.
for sure.
Yeah. And so as you started to, get more involved in the community and coaching, what were some of the shifts that you made that you were doing and you're like, okay, here's how I can optimize this? Or what did you get a sense of almost affirmation of like, okay, I am doing this right. I just need to keep going down this journey. And here's someone that can see, months down the road to give me that certainty that I am going down the right path.
Yeah. So for me, because I had started to do some tracking, right? I was tracking some calories. I did some sort of rudimentary calculations, just with some free stuff on the internet, to try and figure out like, okay, where was I eating and what constitutes an actual calorie deficit for me? I was trying to weigh myself every day, but I was running into those same frustrations of, well, I feel like I've been working really hard, but the scale went up a couple pounds today or something like that. And even logically knowing that that can shift with how your body is and for any variety of reasons, that doesn't change the fact that mentally it's hard to see a number higher than when it was when you were felt like you were losing weight.
Yeah.
And so some of the mentality shifts have been having some of that guidance to as reminders of a sounding board, like, nope, it's fine. You are trending in the correct direction. And in fact, to have a, a longer scale of data to work with, where it's easy to lose the forest and the trees when you're just like, especially even if you're getting used to stepping on the scale every day. And yes, you've lost some weight, but then it pops up again, and then it feels like you're kind of in that zone. I was like, right, but if you have a couple weeks worth of that data, so yeah, but you can see that in the trend line, you're actually trending in the right direction, and it's been a helpful shift to look at it differently. To say, okay, yeah, I have a day or two here after I hit a new low. I often have a couple days where it pops back up a little bit and hovers at the previous new low,
Yeah.
and then drop back off again. And so that's been helpful to shift there, and shifting the mentality around, um, seeing if you do see that higher number, it's like, right, but if even with that higher number, you didn't gain back 2 pounds of fat or whatever it was, because that requires a whole lot more eating than you're doing, and you don't need to undereat, right? You shouldn't be ravenously hungry going into each meal. Like you can set it such that you're eating the right things at the right time to satisfy what your body needs, but also be eating in that deficit to be losing weight or to go towards whatever your goal is.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things I love about what you said is even as you go to an all-time low, at some point you will have to stop going to an all-time low. Otherwise, you're
Right.
literally like an ice cube melting. And I know you're in the finance industry, and it's kind of the same thing where it's like, oh, all-time high. And it's like at some point it has to come back down. Do you ever have any, I don't know, things that you kind of take from that arena that you apply to fitness? And I know it's obviously harder said than done. That's why we're so bad at just not looking at the granular data and just zooming out. I always try and remind myself and clients, when in doubt, zoom out. Is there anything that you've kind of noticed in terms of patterns that, again, kind of like reinforce your mindset and what's working, and remind yourself, hey, stay the course. This is a process. This is a journey.
Yeah, it's for me, it's definitely that pattern of seeing the new low, and then now knowing, because we have the data, that probably tomorrow, and if not tomorrow, maybe the next day or then a couple days after that, it's going to bounce back up, and that's fine. It's You're going to see it, and you're going to move on because you're doing all the right things and trending in the correct direction. And then, like you said, I mean, I work as a financial advisor, and trying to apply the same sort of advice that we usually give to people. It's like, if you keep just watching the stock market every day, you're going to go crazy, because there is
Yeah.
sometimes it reacts to stuff that it doesn't need to, and sometimes it's reacting appropriately, and sometimes it's going up or down depending on different whole bunch of different factors. But if you're watching that without context, you're going to pull your hair out. In the
Yeah.
same fact, yeah, exactly that. It's like when you get so hung up on the granular detail, like, oh, it was the scale went up a little bit today, or a lot today, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's been very helpful to say, no, I'm going to rely back on, I know I'm doing the right things. I know what I've been putting in my body. I know that I didn't eat that many pounds worth of food in the last 24 hours. And so I'm moving myself in the correct direction and setting myself into the habits where it's like, that's okay. I can just kind of hit something, move on, miss a workout. It's okay. Move on, reset.
Yeah.
Uh, you're not going to make up, the one missed workout by working out twice as hard or twice as long the next time. And your body at a certain point doesn't really care about that anymore.
Yeah.
So I have to keep reminding myself of that as well, to
Yeah.
try and reset. Like, it's okay to have life happen and just reset, get back into it, just the same program that you were doing before, because that's what's working.
Yeah, totally. And so for you, as you've, started to really dial this in and double down on what's working, make some shifts, what have been some of the biggest wins performance wise, or I was going to say numerology, numbers wise, or even just like qualitatively and how you feel? What are some of the things that you've noticed that have been cool?
Yeah, so I think all three. I think, like fitness and progress wise, I was just talking about that this morning with Marcos. Was I started the next iteration of my training program yesterday, and part of that was eccentric push-ups with cluster sets of those. And I was just thinking about that. It was like, even 2 months ago, I probably couldn't have done maybe more than one or two. Now, we didn't do a huge big set of them, and that's okay because it was still difficult. But but I don't think that I would have been able to even manage doing it properly about 2 months ago,
Yeah.
because I just hadn't been lifting. I hadn't been working even just with my own body weight to get into that position and do it. And so there's all kinds of stuff like that for almost every movement where I'm like, no, I feel stronger. I know that I'm stronger because of just how the lift is going or how the workout is going. But there's just certain parts of that, like doing like a full body eccentric push up or something like that. Something I know I couldn't have done 2 months ago. Um, numerically, and just like in quantitatively, I'm just about 20 pounds down from when I started with you, and I'm a little bit more than that from when I started in general. But I'm right on the precipice of the plateau that I hit about 5 years ago, right around when my second child was born. But back then, had started a track. I was doing things, but I wasn't doing any of it right. I
Yeah.
was doing it because I knew I should do it, but I wasn't really making a shift in what I was eating. I was making a shift in how much I was eating, but I didn't have any real mathematical data or know what I should be modulating to get to that point. And really, all I was doing was walking. So I made really good progress just doing that because that was more motion than I was doing before.
Yeah.
But I also didn't have any of the support or the knowledge base of to me, because to me it was always like, okay, well, if I'm not losing any weight anymore, maybe I should be cutting the calories more, or walking more, or doing more of that rather than something like doing a refeed. Like your body needs calories, it needs energy, it needs carbs, and so the same amount of protein and all that kind of stuff to replenish what it knows is losing because it's going into emergency mode thinking it's dying. I was like, I didn't have any of that knowledge base, so I would hit that plateau and stay there for a couple of weeks, and I just got to the point where I got frustrating, and like a lot of people would quit.
Yeah.
So I'm right on that. I think I'm actually lower than where I hit that, but I for right now I'm right in that 33, 31, 332 area of weight, and that was my biggest frustration is I could not break back through 330. But now the difference of that and both how I feel and how quantitatively I can see it is now I can actually feel the difference. It's like before it felt like, yeah, I dropped a bunch of weight, but it almost felt like tenuous. Not like I didn't I have to put in effort to put all that weight back on. I did. I had to eat more than I needed to for quite a long time.
Yeah.
But but even then, I mean, it just felt like that weight loss was hanging on by a thread. Like it just, and that really was what it was. Like it only took a little bit of frustration and lack of community and knowledge to just sort of break down all of that progress that I had made. Now though, it feels a lot different. Whereas like I know I have a lot more you know support and data behind logic behind what I'm doing, and so now I've dropped a lot of this weight again. And so, but now I'm on that precipice, and it doesn't really feel like a roadblock anymore.
Yeah.
It feels like we're just in the next couple of weeks here, we're going to blow right through that and keep marching down towards the end goal.
Yeah. And it's funny again, the parallels in what you do in health and fitness, when you run into that roadblock where things are kind of flat, it's so hard to resist the temptation to be like, oh well, I need to go and do something to jury rig it up.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to go and mix up the strategy and the plan and process that we have in place. But I love what you said. It's just the knowledge. The more knowledge you have, the more you can trust the path that you're on and be able to like sit through a economic downturn or sit through a plateau because it's really similar in that it's really easy to get away from logic and be like, oh crap, I'm in a plateau, I must do more cardio, and it's not usually not the case. There's little shifts that you can make, but I love that like you're incorporating the community, the knowledge, and I've no doubt you'll bust through this plateau and continue on with everything you've been learning. For someone in your shoes, starting their journey, right? Maybe they got similar goals, challenges, background. Like, what would you say three things to focus on? We call these the three keys to success, but this is kind of your opportunity to coach future troopers or even just someone that might come across this video.
Yeah. So the first one, and I kind of touched on it earlier, was one of the things that I saw a lot from online in the different social feeds, and it really rings true, is there is no perfect time to start. There is no perfect date. You know there's no barrier to that, right? You can start at any time. It doesn't have to be any specific impetus. In fact, that should just be now. Again, there like you can start over, you can start again. Just start, do something. I think you refer to a lot of it is just especially within the program, is just having that bias for action, right? And so, and part of that is just you just got to start. It doesn't matter what that is. It doesn't matter where you're starting from. Everyone has the different starting point, and that's okay. But if you're afraid to start, you kind of just have to, you know, there's stuff out there. It's like just do it afraid. I was that's what part of it was for me is like I started out and I was like I'm kind of not afraid of going to the gym or afraid of like working out again, but I'm just kind of afraid to start because what happens if I hit that plateau? What happens if I don't see the progress that I think I should be making? Because I've done it before and failed, but that's okay because you just got to start. Um, that would be number one. Number two is definitely find that community, whatever that means, right? If that's engaging in coaching so that you can kind of get rid of some of that decision fatigue and you've got somebody in your back pocket, either a personal trainer or a coaching program or whatever it is. Or if it's just you find people that, wherever you choose to exercise or you have a friend group or whatever that is, because it's good to have, significant others and family members and people that are supportive. But you want to make sure that you're surrounding yourself with as many people as possible that you can rely on and bounce ideas off of, and just that are there to help you through that journey because you can't really. You can do it alone, but why? It is so much harder to be going through, especially if you're trying to make very big changes, to be going through it alone or with the semblance of feeling alone, where it's like only you're making this change for you, but the rest of the world was kind of blocked out. But if you can share that with other people and people can help shoulder that burden for you, it makes things that much more enjoyable. Um, and Number three is for me, I think this is the big one is and it's more mathematical and maybe a little bit less fun is uh, a lot of, especially if you're in a place where you need to lose weight and be dropping that weight, a lot of it just comes down to math. It's calories in and calories out. And it's math and movement really. It's you need to be consuming only so many calories so that your body has a chance to actually peel some of that weight off to be using itself to get down towards your goals, and then just moving more. Something I'm continually trying to do, though I live in the New England area, so it's getting to that time of year where being outside is not as enjoyable to get that movement in. But hoping to have some of that in the house soon. But it's just to me, even if you don't like tracking things or think it takes too long, because there's ways to get ahead of it. There's ways to, I know what I'm going to plan out, especially if you're meal prepping or something like that. But even if you're not, you can put a lot of that stuff into most of these tracking apps for especially for free for a week out. So it's like if you just spend half an hour doing that on a Sunday, then you know what's happening for the rest of the week. I will often do that. And then if something changes, because life happens, you can just take something out and put it in. That only takes 2 minutes after
Yeah.
that. And so it's just a matter of you can't, to a certain extent, you can only get so far without actually looking at any numbers and any data. You can make progress, but if you're not looking at any of that stuff, you will likely hit that plateau, and then it's all back to one and two, right? It's gonna lose that out on your community because you're going to pull back. You'd stop like I've done and give up at a certain plateau because you're not looking at any of those numbers, and to me that's very helpful,
Yeah.
because I have the hard data to know, nope, that's what I put in, and I know I've been putting in the work, so it's okay. Everything's gonna
Yeah.
be fine.
Yeah, I find data helps you tie out the emotion and the logic and be able to see what the actual story is because our brains are so good at coming up with stories. And
Hmm.
sometimes the story is a lie and it's not true, but when you look at the data, it's one of the best things. Not a lot of people mention that. I think your background in data obviously helps, but yeah, just the more data driven you can be, it does just become a math equation at that point. And the hard thing is keeping the emotions out of that to let the math because math
Hmm.
is logical and there is no variables to that. And so the last thing I'll leave you with is a final kind of like nerd Star Wars question. Your call sign's Ranger, which I thought was cool and kind of like the things that you're into. And then also I got the Aragorn tie in that for well you keep this one Star Wars because that's what a lot of the community is about. What is your favorite clone trooper and why?
Hmm. Interesting. That's a tough one because I'm just starting to work through the Clone Wars with my son, and it would be hard for me to pick because I don't have all of the lore.
Fair.
Um, but so far, it's been interesting to see how, with a couple of the commanders in there, like Rex or even Cody, where it's they have that tenacity and that resilience to just kind of not give up and not
Mhm.
give up on the situation and not give up no matter what's going on and how hard things are getting. And so I would say probably one of those. I don't have enough of all of the troopers in there to make a fully informed decision because we're
Yeah.
working through season one now.
Well, even a spin-off of that is like what would be your like your key trooper traits? And that's kind of the whole idea of the alter ego, right? Ranger
Mm-hmm.
is your the trooper mentality. And so I think for you and what I, kind of experienced with it working with you is like if you're tenacious, if you're resilient, if you're courageous, that was another one that you kind of, do it scared. That's what a trooper does. And so it's like the things we see and that we like in troopers are also the things we see and like in ourselves. Like I like Obi-Wan Kenobi because he does the hard thing even when everyone around him's dying and he just like keeps the Jedi path. And so I think that'll be a fun thing for you to meet and interact, not interact, but kind of see how those characters interact with each other. And maybe we'll come back to this with a different answer. But Rex and Cody, for a lot of people, that is their answer because they have those traits.
For sure, and I think that all kind of falls right in line with that. It's it's meeting adversity like head on and really getting after it, even when you feel when you feel like it's you're behind it all.
Hmm.
And there, even within the last couple of months, I've definitely felt that where there's been times where it's like I kind of feel low energy or something's bothering me or whatever it is, and it's like, but getting out there and getting that movement in always feels better. Like I always feel better afterwards, and
Yeah,
I've definitely made a lot more progress this time around, and what I feel is more real, sustainable progress.
yeah,
But yeah, it'll be something definitely something to revisit. But I also liked the call sign when that came around because it very much felt appropriate for the journey that I've been going on.
yeah, 100%. Well, man, thanks for the time. Thanks for the lessons and pumped to see you continue to win. And what's your Instagram so people can follow along with you? Give you a little social media
Oh
plug.
yeah, I started that on social media. It's way less the number four and then Storm Blessed, and that's a reference to Brandon Sanderson character, and it was very similar to like the trooper mentality and everything else of like finding that alter ego. It was for me, it was there's a character in there that shows all that same tenacity and lack of wanting to give up and wanting to protect themselves and protect others. And those are traits that I admired a lot. And so I was like, okay, part of that was to keep myself accountable.
Yeah,
And it was like, if I am not just taking progress photos for myself or just looking at myself in the mirror and seeing the numbers on the scale for myself, if I can share that outwardly and keep myself at least a little bit accountable, at least make regular posts on it to say, nope, here's where I'm at, here's what I'm doing, and here's why it's difficult, or here's the things that I don't like about it, or whatever. It just keeps me honest with it,
yeah,
and hopefully, and I don't care about being an influencer in any capacity. You and I talked about that, I think, the first time that we met, but it was more so just I'm starting from a place where I got a long road to go, and there's a lot of other people that have a similarly long road ahead of them, and so it's always nice to see when people are like posting like, yeah, I can do all these workouts and on in the fitness space, and that's great. You don't often see as much of, hey, here's a daily progress report from where I started to where I ended.
yeah,
There's usually like, here's where I started, one picture, and here's where I ended, one picture, and that's great, that's phenomenal.
yeah.
But it was like, hey, this is the path, and it's hard, and it's
And
not
it's funny
instantaneous.
you say you don't want to be an influencer, but that's like exactly what influences people is
Right.
authenticity. and storytelling. So don't be surprised if someone follows you and like, hey, you inspired me. And that at the end of the day is you being an influencer to a different degree.
Yeah.
But
Right.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, dude, thanks for the time, and we'll watch your career with great interest, Ranger.
I appreciate it, Paul. Thank you.